Hi everyone! So today we're looking at part 3 of Ethnicity and Nationality. So your objective for the day is to compare ethnicity and nationality. And this one is going to be a bit longer. There's a lot of stuff in here, but it's really, really important. And these two things are often closely tied together, but they're not the same. So I want you to think about for a minute and consider, what nationality are you? And for some of you, that may be an incredibly simple answer, and others, you may struggle with it a little bit more. Maybe you feel or regard yourself as a different nationality than, say, I do, or than someone else that you know may. So our tidbit of the day is that there's a blood disorder called methemoglobinemia that actually makes your skin turn blue. This particular picture is a rendering of a family in Kentucky that many of them suffered from this disorder. But it does make your skin turn pretty blue. Okay. All right, so looking at ethnic identity. First up, nationality. So we know that ethnicity is related to your culture. Nationality is related to your legality. So this is the identity with a group with legal and personal attachment to a country. So looking here, ethnicity is culture, language, religion, food, clothing. Nationality is the legal stuff, voting, your passport, your civic duties like jury duty and stuff like that. So looking at nationalities in the United States versus the United Kingdom, for the most part in the US, we really only recognize one major nationality, and that would be American. We kind of disregard indigenous nationalities like the Cherokee Nation. Here, although strictly speaking, they should be recognized. But for our purposes, nationalities in the United States, American. But in the United Kingdom, they have English, they have Welsh, and they have Scottish, which are all regularly and distinctly recognized as separate nationalities. So just a few memes for your entertainment. All right, so I want you to take a moment to discuss, how do we show nationalism in the United States? And this is what we also might normally refer to as patriotism. So nationalism kind of has a two-sided definition, but take a moment, pause the video here, and explain how we show nationalism in the US. Okay. So nationalism, on the most basic definition, is pride in one's country. On the nice end, on the good end, this is largely, as I just said, referred to as patriotism. It can bring people together. It can be seen as a good thing. And we foster it in a few different ways. So we might use things like symbols, or symbols like flags or songs. So like the national anthem or America the Beautiful. But we also use images like the bald eagle or Uncle Sam, and we use slogans like the land of the free, the home of the brave. But usually when we use the term nationalism, we are often going to the extreme end. So for human geography, nationalism is just pride in one's country. But when we talk about the bad side of it in everyday language, nationalism is the extreme and negative end of it. Most specifically recognized with Nazi Germany. This is a really great definition, or a really great example where we think about the nationalism of Hitler, of the German people, and saying, hey, the Germans are the master race. They are better than everyone else. They're stronger, they're bigger, they're more beautiful, they're all of these other great things. And it becomes nationalism to the extreme where they want to destroy people. They want to murder people who are not what they deem as the best, as part of the master race. We see similar thoughts at times through concepts of white nationalism. That's the one that we're most familiar with and we see the most frequently in the United States, where we have, these are often are neo-Nazis, people who are in the KKK, but not limited to them. This has been very prevalent in the last couple of years. So when we see these big hate groups, they're often associated with white nationalism. So centripetal forces, and we've already talked about these are attitudes that tend to unify and increase support. This is kind of the good side, usually, of nationalism. The songs, the slogans, the symbols, all that good stuff. And centrifugal forces are the attitudes that tend to divide or decrease support. Remember that FU part, it's pushing people apart, pushing people away from each other. Centripetal forces might include stuff like our language, possibly our religion, although religion and language could both theoretically also be centrifugal forces. So if we make everybody learn one language to the detriment of their cultural languages, that's centrifugal. But if we have one language that everybody can use and understand, preferably without getting rid of everything else, that's something that brings people together. All right, so taking some time to look at ethnic competition, and I urge you, look at these photos for a minute. These are photos from moments of ethnic conflict captured on film, and they're quite powerful, quite moving photos. Look at what you see. Look at the devastation that this can cause. And that's really important because we see some ethnic conflict in the United States right now. We see racial tensions, but we don't tend to have ethnic conflict like other places have had. We've been relatively lucky in that aspect. But remember that, what happens in one place can happen in other places. And even if it doesn't happen here, think about, does it matter? Because we're still talking human lives. All right, one of the places that we see some major ethnic competition and ethnic conflict is in Sri Lanka. Remember, this is the teardrop-shaped island country off of the southeast coast of India. So it has three major ethnic groups. The Sinhalese, who make up 74% of the population and are Buddhist, the Tamil, who make up 16% of the population and are Hindu, and the Moors, who make up 10% of the population and are Muslim. Then we further kind of split it up and we have the Indian Tamil and the Sri Lankan Tamil, but check out where everybody is on this map. And we can see, obviously, the Sinhalese, 74% of the population, take up most of the space in Sri Lanka. So I want you to take a moment and discuss in your notes, brainstorm it, maybe talk it out with your parents or your classmates, but pause the video and write down some thoughts on what's a good way that governments can reassure or honor minority ethnicities. Because we tend to think majority rules, but that doesn't necessarily hold true all of the time, and it certainly doesn't recognize the importance and the equality of other smaller groups. So here we are looking at a map of India, actually two maps of India and the surrounding countries. Once upon a time, before 1947, India is one absolutely massively gigantic country that basically is most of South and Southeast Asia. After 1947, we're going to see something called partition, and we are going to literally divide or separate. We partition off the country, and we end up with India in this big central kind of triangular shape that we're familiar with. We have Pakistan to the east, and we have Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Burma or Myanmar to the west. We also get Sri Lanka out of this. At the beginning, Pakistan was basically both sides of this, and we had West Pakistan here, which just becomes Pakistan, and we have East Pakistan over here, which becomes Bangladesh. So looking further into this division of ethnicities, or this dividing of ethnicities, in South Asia, again, what I just told you, British rule ended in India in 1947, not very long ago. So right shortly after the end of World War II. We have two ethnicities largely based on religion, the Hindus and the Muslims, and we are going to get the division into India and West and East Pakistan, which is now West Pakistan just became Pakistan, East Pakistan became Bangladesh. We have Muslims in Pakistan and Bangladesh and Hindus in India. But we have some problems. Because even though we create this division, and by the way, just a side note, this is, if you know who Gandhi is, or you've ever heard of Gandhi, this is what he was especially well known for, is being instrumental to the partition of India. So even though we create this new border, we aren't automatically just, oh, we're Indian and Hindu on one side and Pakistani and Muslim on the other side. It does not work that way. We have Muslims stuck on one side that actually happens to be India. We have Hindus stuck on the Pakistani side. Because people have lived there for generations, they're not moving, or they're related to somebody who is on the other side. It's causing a lot of chaos still. But we have mass migration in the late 1940s. So remember, look at our map. The bigger the arrow, the more people we have moving. So we are going to have a flow of about 5.3 million Muslims out of India into Pakistan and Afghanistan. We're going to have another 1.2 down here. So up here in the north, we have 5.3. A little further down, a little further south, we have 1.2 million into Bangladesh, or what at the time was East Pakistan, 0.7 million. At the same time, we have 3.4 million coming from up here, from the area that had been part of India but now is Pakistan, into India, another 1.2 in the southern part of Pakistan, and 2.6 million from Bangladesh into India. Overall, we have 7 million Muslims moving from India to Pakistan. We have 9.5 Hindus moving from Pakistan to India. And overall consequences is that we end up with over 500,000 people who are killed in a genocide. Because they're still not happy, there's still a lot of conflict. It is not an easy transition. It is not entirely peaceful by any stretch. So when people kind of get stuck on one side or the other, that can result in major outbursts of conflict like genocide. I'm going to post this video for decolonization from Crash Course in the description for this video and in Google Classroom. So keep an eye out for that. So here we are looking at a map largely of the Middle East, and so we are including all the way from Pakistan in the east over to Iraq and Georgia in the west. Every color on here is a separate ethnic group. So we see a lot of distribution, we see a lot of dispersed ethnicities, a lot of clustered ethnicities. And overall, we know that when we have this many ethnic groups together, we're probably going to get some conflict out of it. So the Kurds. There are approximately 30 million Kurds who are split between Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. They are a particular ethnic group made up of Sunni Muslims. They speak a language of the Indo-Iranian group. They feature distinctive literature, dress, and cultural traditions. They are an entirely distinct ethnic group. They are separate from everyone else around them. They might share similarities. There may be some shared cultural traits, but they are totally separate, totally distinctive from everyone else. Again, gonna post this video in the description and in Google Classroom, so check this out. This is really, really good and really important information. But to go back to this for just a second, big problem is that with 30 million people, and this map here is showing where the Kurds are distributed, so it's kind of all throughout the Middle East. They want to have their own separate country because they want to be able to govern themselves. They want to be able to make their own laws, to practice their culture in peace, and just to be self-determined, so to rule themselves. They have a proposed country called Kurdistan, which would essentially take up most of this area right here. Problem is, to do this, each of these countries loses some space, and they do not want to. And that causes some further issues. So the Kurds have been suppressed by the different countries, by the different governments. They don't want it anymore. They want their own space and have for quite a while. So in your notes, take a moment to write about ethnic conflict. So we see ethnic conflict and extreme nationalism around the world. So what should the US address this? And if they should, how? So do we have a role in it? And if so, what should that role be? Remember that there are consequences on both sides. Should we have a role in it? Some of you may say yes, some of you say no. Don't go with that gut instinct. Take a little bit of time and think about it. What are the consequences? If we get involved, that can be seen as we are out of our place. We shouldn't be involved in other things. But if we don't get involved, we're potentially allowing the continued violence against and possible genocide of a lot of different people. Sorry, you can see my stuff popping up in the corner. All right, so take a moment to summarize. Explain the difference between ethnicity and nationality, and then use an example to describe one way that these two concepts have affected the world. And that should be an A. It should be affected the world. That's it for today. So take a little time, make your notes, go back and review anything that you missed. Check out those videos that are going to be linked below or in Google Classroom, and have a great day. Bye.